Well, welcome once again to another edition of the Discover New Music podcast from Pelt Music. Shortly, we will be talking with Pet Needs, and of course, we featured one of their tracks on our Discover New Music playlist over on Spotify recently. So make sure you head to Spotify to check out their single Punk Isn't Dead, It's Just Up for Sale. But before then, just the usual reminders from myself. Now, if you would, please do follow us on social media. We are on Facebook at Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Pelt Music. And finally, if you would, please do hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, wherever you are watching. Well, welcome, Johnny from Pet Needs, to the Discover New Music podcast. How are you this fine morning?
I'm good, man. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a little bit tired. We've just done 2 shows in 2 days, which because of COVID and stuff like that, we're not kind of like used to touring. So I'm a little bit tired, but I'm feeling good, you know. We played over at a place called Hotbox in Chelmsford on Tuesday, and then we went and did a gig at Signature Brew in Haggerston yesterday. And both of them were brilliant. It was just carnage. It's just so amazing to get out with the band again. So yeah, it's lovely, man. But yeah, a little bit tired, but really good, mate. Really good. Yeah,
but hopefully that adrenaline's still flowing, and we're going to touch on, you know, the return to live music and the shows that you guys have been doing a bit later in the podcast. So we've added "Punk Is Not Dead" Is Just Up for Sale, your recent single, to our Discover New Music playlist, and nice. We're going to talk about that in just a second. But before then, we start every podcast with the same question. It's a portion we like to call the origin story. So obviously the Discover New Music podcast is for people to discover new music and new bands. So obviously there hopefully will be people listening to this that aren't familiar with Pet Needs. So yeah, how did Pet Needs form? Where did you guys come from?
Yeah, sure. So Pet Needs was set up by me and my little brother George. Both from Derby originally, and then I kind of like hopped around the country for a little bit. Kind of went to Nottingham, then to Norwich, and down to Suffolk, and ended up landing in Essex, which is where I live with my now wife Lorna. And whilst I was doing all that kind of like hopping around the country, my brother stayed in Derby, and he was kind of like living quite small, really. He was working in an overnight garage, and he had a kind of a bit of a realization that he was like, he didn't like quite know what he was doing with his life at the time. And we had one moment where I was like, look, just kind of like quit your job, come sleep on my sofa in my flat. We'll try and get you some work and we'll just see where it goes. And so he came down and he had a guitar and I had a guitar, and we just started playing songs together. And it's a bit weird because before I was doing this band, I was kind of writing kind of introverted kind of folk music, music that I think I was enjoying writing, but I would never really choose to listen to it. Right. And then one of my favourite bands is a band called Against Me, who I love so much. And they've got a lyric in one of their songs saying, "We can be the bands that we want to hear." And I remember hearing that lyric, and then suddenly the penny dropped that I don't know why I'm writing introverted folk music. I just want to be writing kind of like balls to the wall punk songs. And so, yeah, we just kind of, there's about 6 years ago now. It seems both 2 days ago and a lifetime ago. And we just started writing together, and then kind of built the band through either friends that we knew, or we went through a few different lineups and landed in the final lineup about 3 years ago.
Yeah, and you've had an interesting last year or so with the release of your debut album, which we'll get to after, just touching on the single we talked about. So Punk Is Not Dead, It's Just Up for Sale. Comes from the deluxe version of the album, came out recently, added to our playlist. What can you tell us about that song?
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you so much for adding it to the playlist. That's exactly people like you and kind of like websites like yours, which helps get the music out to new people. So honestly, thank you so much for doing that. It's actually a really, really old song that we wrote. It's one of the first songs we wrote when I was just talking about kind of like 6 years ago when we were sitting down on our sofa in the little flat that I used to live in. And when we had the option to do a deluxe version of the album, what we wanted to do is go back to, we did a couple of songs were kind of like reworkings of stuff that were on the album. So we had like an acoustic version of a heavy song on the album and a heavy version of an acoustic song. But then we had a couple of songs which were the songs that we wrote. We kind of coined the term the kind of month of madness when my brother came down, because it just felt like we were on holiday together, because we just hadn't seen each other for so long, and it was like the beers were flowing and stuff, and we were just writing these kind of like ratty punk songs, because we didn't have any money at the time or any funding behind it or anything. We never had the opportunity to record them properly. And so as soon as we were given the options, kind of like record B-sides or record extra tunes and things, we thought, oh, wouldn't it be amazing to go back and kind of give those songs the time that they deserved and production they deserved. So we hopped in the studio with Get Cape, Wear Cape, Fly, who was amazing. His studio's down in Southampton and it's beautiful. And he kind of absolutely met our vision that we wanted to do something that was kind of like raw and aggressive, wanted everything to be 1 or 2 takes, and create something that was kind of a bit of a bop, but then also kind of wanted the production to be quite aggressive as well. And I think he hit it perfectly. And it's a song that the kind of like lyrics came from when I was going into London for some reason. So I live in Colchester, so kind of like about 40, 50 minutes out of London. I'd go in and I was kind of on the platform at the time where all the commuters were there. And I was seeing so many people that were kind of, they looked like punks, but they were all dressed up as normal people at the same time. You know what I mean? Kind of like shirt and tie and stuff. You can see kind of like the neck tattoos and things. And I found that kind of like dichotomy between the two really, really interesting. I used to work a similar job I used to work for an autism charity. I used to put on events, but I had to, every single day, I had to wear like school trousers and a button-up shirt to go to the job, even though the job was really good. And it really kind of like damaged my mental health, really, because I couldn't be the person I wanted to be, even though I loved the job and I was doing good stuff. So it's kind of a bit storytelling, but then also very autobiographical. And then when I left the job and I went to work for a students' union, putting on events, doing a very, very similar job. You could wear whatever you wanted, and suddenly my kind of mental health was so much better as I could suddenly be kind of like my true self wherever I was, which was so yeah, it's all good. And now I do music as a job as well, so I can be even more my true self. Which is
you
awesome.
can wear whatever you want now. There's far too many.
That's it.
Far too many stigmas still out there in the workplace around, how you're supposed to look when you're working in an office. Especially around tattoos and everything. The world needs to get with the times, doesn't it, and move on. So
that's
great.
It. Our bass player, before we kind of like made the leap to do the music full time, he was working on building sites and stuff, and he'd be one of the people who would go and check kind of the structural safety of the buildings and all that kind of thing. And he had to kind of ask permission to get hand tattoos first and stuff. And even though it's kind of like working on a building site, and he's like, so people aren't dressed up smart or anything like that, he still had to say to his boss, "Can I get hand tattoos?" And it didn't make him any like worse of a building. Of course
not.
He was still as great as, and he was really passionate about his job and great at it. But yeah, I think there still is a real stigma around it, which is so bizarre because like more people have tattoos than don't now.
Exactly. Very, very weird. And there was a cool video actually for the song as well, which you just touched upon. Obviously, listeners can check it out on YouTube. Where did the concept of that video come from?
So basically, it came from kind of like we wanted to do it as a bit of a joke, but then actually shooting the video became a little bit more poignant when we did it as well, even though it doesn't come across as poignant at all. You never know, because we were meant to do it kind of as a joke. So the concept behind the video, we wanted, the song's called Punk Is Dead, is just up for sale, and we wanted to kind of like build a kind of like fake TV studio and go on a shopping channel. We wanted to like sell loads of weird kind of like merch. So we kind of like run around our houses finding things like watering cans and skateboards and blenders and stuff, and just sticking loads of pet knee stickers on it, kind of making them kind of like putting them out as merch. But the video had a kind of like different level to it, which we weren't expecting, in that in January and February, we'd all kind of left our jobs. And in January, February, we were meant to be doing a UK tour supporting Frank Turner. And we're talking kind of like Rock City and Brixton Academy and all these huge rooms. And it meant that we could, I mean, we'd live modestly, but it meant that we could make it our job from there. So we'd all handed in our notice very kind of victoriously and stuff. And then the day before we shot that video, we learned that due to COVID, the tour had fallen through. So suddenly we were all essentially out of work unless we were going to be creative, which luckily we were. We were able to kind of like do something different. So we all walked into this this video shoot with the kind of like irony of all of it weighing upon us, where suddenly it was like, okay, yeah, Punks That is just up for sale, and we really do need money now. But yeah, it's cool. I love it. And like with music videos, we get a kind of quite a small budget to make music videos, but we just pull in favors from all our mates and things, and just try and push it as far as possible to just have fun with it. You know, like I hate photo shoots because I think photo shoots, they're really, I get really self-conscious doing photo shoots. If someone just kind of like says, can you just stand there and look cool or something like that? But with videos, you have the chance to kind of just take the mickey out of yourself a bit, but also just be really creative, really fun. So I see it as part of the art, but also the chance just to lean into, the more fun side of it as well. And it ended up being a really fun day, which is cool.
Yeah, no, and it works really well, comes across really well. So listeners, make sure you search that out on YouTube. It is a good fun video. And to be honest,
it was Robert Watts that did it as well. Sorry, I just wanted to get his name. Like, Robert Watts Photography is on all social media. And he does lots of music videos for bands in the Essex area. But he is honestly just one of the best people I've ever worked with. Really amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Again, this is obviously search him out as well. Because really enjoyed the video. Hadn't seen the video. Obviously, added the songs to the playlist a while back, and enjoyed the song, but we checked out the video in advance of recording this podcast, and very, very enjoyable. Again, very enjoyable, very fun. They're words that I'd probably actually attach to your debut album, Fractured Party Music. I have to admit, when I first listened to it, we reviewed it for the website when it first came out. It blew me away because it's obviously very, very good, but it wasn't what I expected when I hit the play button. I just remember really enjoying listening to it, and I wouldn't say I wasn't expecting to like it, but I probably wasn't expecting to like it that much, So it's a great album that obviously listeners should check out. What can you tell us about the album? Obviously, you had Frank Turner produce it. What was it like working with Frank, and what should listeners expect from the album?
Yeah, so the album kind of came about almost by mistake. It's really weird. So it's kind of like was it 2019 COVID hit, wasn't it? Or 2020? 2020, wasn't it? Yeah. So it's kind of January 2020, and we'd had a string of, January gigs are always hard, but we'd had a string of kind of like going and playing to, like, traveling really far to play to about 6 people on a Tuesday evening and stuff like that. But at the same time, as I said earlier, I was working for a students' union putting on events. And I was putting on kind of like big fireworks events and stuff that we'd have like 7,000 people come to. And then the next day I'd go and play a gig to 6 people. And I was like, I went for a walk with my brother and said, look, I'm getting so much out of work at the moment that if the band if we don't do anything kind of like amazing this year, or if it doesn't build this year, even though it's like my heart's into it, I love it so much, I think I'm just going to throw myself into work. So I've got a job that I really enjoy, I'm doing good at and stuff. And then we started to get a few kind of like cool festivals drop into the summer, and it started to look a bit more exciting. We were meant to go out to Berlin to play Lost Evenings with Frank Turner as well, which has been really cool. And then suddenly COVID hit and everything stopped. But because I used to work in events as well, it means I was furloughed from work, looked into the future, and it was just kind of like a big blank expansive nothingness. We didn't know when it's going to come back. And so I remember me and my brother were kind of like walking around this big reservoir in Colchester, and we just chatted about how can we keep creative. And we started thinking about, well, should we do another EP? And then we thought, look, why? We've got the time, and we're never going to have this time again in the same way. Let's just lean into doing an album. So we kind of took some songs that we already had, and then we wrote some other ones kind of like really quickly, really, because we booked the time in about 6 weeks later. So we kind of like did a lot of writing and like kind of like pulled other things together. And then spent a week in the studio with a guy called Tom Donovan, who's a local producer who's really brilliant. And it was just an amazing experience. It was really interesting because our EPs that we've done before, I think because you only get to do like 4 or 5 songs, you just thrash out all your punk songs or all your really kind of like hits that everyone can sing and stuff like that. With an album, it gave you the chance to like let the songs breathe a little bit more and take people on a little bit more of a journey. So we've got songs that are kind of like heavy and sing along and things, a bit like Punks of Dead stuff sell on the extended edition, or we've got like our singles on it and stuff. But it also gave us the opportunity to kind of experiment with being really quiet, and then also experiment with being like more kind of like screaming as well than we've been before. So it's kind of a mixture of everything. I think the name Fractured Party Music came about 4 years ago when I was sitting in as an interviewing person before the kind of like world of Zoom.
Yeah.
And they were saying to me, how would you describe your music? And I was like, well, it's kind of punk, but it's not punk, and it's kind of party music, but it feels like it could implode at any moment, like you're just gripping on by your fingernails. I suppose so. It's kind of party music. It's kind of fractured at the same time. It's like, yeah, it's kind of fractured party music. And then we released like another couple of EPs since then, but we always saved the name Fractured Party Music for the album, because I think it was just kind of a statement of intent and just kind of explains what we were, really.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting to hear you describe it, the genre of music, because I mean, everyone wants to stick a label on everything these days. But I think that's one of the things when I first reviewed the album that struck me is it was very hard to stick a single label on it. There's multiple labels on it, and there's a lot of songs on there that are real earworms. Toothpaste. I've seen you guys live a couple of times, and that's always the song that you'll have stuck in your head when you're walking away. There's a number of those songs on there, which for me almost feel like there's a pop element, or at least
sure, man,
indie
100%.
type element. Really interesting to hear you describe how the term Fractured Party Music come up, and perhaps you've created a new genre.
But I think with like kind of like pop and indie and stuff like that, like because one of my favorite bands are a band called Against Me, and it's all to do with the massive pop choruses. It's same with Rancid from the 90s as well. But I've listened to a lot of Franz Ferdinand recently as well, which is a band that I was into when I was much younger. And I really liked how they would write indie music and big guitar music, but then they put like dance beats underneath it as well. And that's kind of something that we did subconsciously. I didn't go, I want to sound like Franz Ferdinand. But when we were doing punk, we do this kind of like really quick kind of like beat in the chorus. And it's almost like a dancey beat, like over kind of punk music. So I really like kind of pulling from different genres. I don't think it's conscious at all, really. I like when we write songs, I sit in the room upstairs and start with the first word of the first verse and then just run into the distance and see where it goes. And then it's my brother who's really good at arranging. I kind of like show it to him, and then that's when we start putting out the bits where I'm like, right, this is the hook, this is the chorus, and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of builds from there. So it's a good partnership, but I massively a massive unashamed fan of pop music as well. I mean pop music in kind of like poppy guitar music, and I say like things like Rancid, or even things like the Clash, and I think the Sex Pistols are one of the best pop bands in the world. Or someone like Buzzcocks as well. Like there's like having a chorus that people can sing along to, I think is amazing, and it's a great vehicle to get words across as well.
Definitely. So obviously Pet Needs are on Xtra Mile Recordings. How supportive have they been throughout this whole process with you?
So honestly, amazing. So we had Frank Turner, who he came to see us at a show that we played in Camden a couple of years ago, and then we kind of kept in contact, and then he ended up mixing our album for us. And then he said he was going to send it to Xtra Mile, who's the label that he's on as well, to see if they wanted to put it out. And we thought it'd be amazing because it's an album, a label that we love, but also thought that if it was going to go out on that label, it might just go out kind of a little bit as a favour to him, and we might not be kind of a priority or anything like that, but it would still be cool to release an album with that logo on it. And then we had a call scheduled with Charlie, who's the head of the label, and I was kind of preparing for it like it's a job interview or something. I had my pitch ready for it and everything like that. And then we had the call, and it was completely reversed. He just was pitching why we should go with Xtra Mile. And since then, they've just been amazing. And they've not just taken us on. First, they were our record label. And then after seeing us a few times live, we got a kind of like another phone call, and it was him pitching for him to become our manager. And so now he manages us, and he manages Frank, and he manages a band called Skinny Lister as well. And I think that's where everything changed, because then they just weren't just the label that were putting out music for us, then they were invested in us as because they were managing us, and they've set us up with kind of American tour agents and European tour agents and all that. And then that's when we suddenly started being a band that were on the label to a band that are now just like, we're doing an American tour, we're doing a European tour, we're going out to Europe I think 3 or 4 times in the next year, and then we're doing some amazing rooms in the UK, and it's like mind-blowing, and it's completely down to their support. They were at our show last night, and they're lovely. There's 3 of them. There's Anthony, and there's Danny, and there's Charlie, who's the head of the label, and they're just the most hardworking, passionate people. And they also let us record another album, kind of like pretty much straight after the first one was out. Like I said to them, right, I want to do another album, and I want to record it in November, and they were like, well, yeah, but you've just released one in March. I was like, yeah, I know, but it needs to be done. And they gave us a bit more of a budget than we had before, so we've been able to get different instrumentation on, and they got it mastered at Abbey Road Studios as well, by a guy that's done everyone from like Oasis to ABBA to Mogwai and stuff like that. So they've just been amazing as a label and as managers as well. And it's just, it's changed our lives. And it's like, honestly, Paul, it's been so weird because like pre-lockdown, and we were loving what we were doing. But pre-lockdown, we were mainly kind of like playing to our mates and stuff. And like our hometown shows were really good because it'd be all of our mates. And then we'd watch all of our mates' bands. Going out of town was a real struggle, a bit like I was saying before, because no one knew who we were. And it was really weird doing that. And then coming out of lockdown and walking onto like stage at Manchester Apollo, where it's 5,500 people. And you just walk out and you're like, oh my God, because it's like we didn't work up to it. It's not like we kind of like played a like 100-person room, then a 1,000-person room, then suddenly we were kind of just thrust onto these big stages. And I think we held our own, which was good, but it was, really bizarre. Still remains bizarre now, but so much fun. And the label were just best label in the world and best managers in the world. Yeah,
certainly. And they've got a fantastic roster of artists that they look after. You know, great record label. How important to you is it? We've talked about punk is in the genre, but these days it's morphed into more of a social outlook, really, punk, you know. So in more of a DIY like ethos. Obviously you guys through lockdown did things like, obviously you did some live streams, which obviously was a bit different to what people are used to. And obviously you've just done, as you said, when the Frank Turner tour was cancelled, headed out on a kind of, for lack of a better word, house party tour. So how important is it to you to kind of maintain that DIY ethos as you progress further?
I think for us, DIY is absolutely where it's building. Like and a lot of the stuff, because we've got like a few thousand like fans on Facebook and stuff like that, but the energy around this band at the moment is in a Facebook group called Fractured Party People. And there's only a few hundred people in there, and the thing that we've done is we've never invited people to the group, so people have to kind of like discover it themselves, and so it's kind of building organically. And like we did a tour called the Borough Toothpaste Tour. When we lost the kind of tour where we were playing the big rooms, we had kind of like 2 weeks from when I kind of like broached it as an idea till we were playing the first show, and we did 14 dates. And these were all just people, we never put it out publicly when we were advertising it. This was just from this small kind of group of people that are so passionate and that are kind of taking it on their responsibility and on their shoulders to grow this band and build this band organically, which is amazing. And that tour just felt so DIY. And so like we were, it was just me and my brother. We're playing acoustic guitars. My brother was getting in there, setting up the PA system himself and stuff like that. We had a bass drum kind of pedal that my brother had kind of like, he kind of made this Frankenstein thing from an electric drum kit, but then with loads of tape, and he put like a tea towel underneath it. I don't know how he made it, but he just kind of made it, and it was super DIY. But then what was really cool is that we played a show over in Wales, and we had a band called Oxbow Lake open for us. And they weren't going to open for us. It was just that they asked us to play their house. And I knew that they played in a band together. And I said, I kind of like broached the idea going, would you like to open for us? It'd be great to have someone on first. And they kind of looked at each other and they were like, yeah, maybe. Yeah, would it be weird? Like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And then they ended up playing like half the tour with us because they were so brilliant. And then now we've had them over to Essex, and they've just recorded with George in George's home studio, and it's kind of, so yeah, I think DIY ethos is so important around this band. And I think also just like letting down all the barriers and having kind of like no arrogance or anything like that, and also letting people know when you're feeling vulnerable or when you're feeling introverted, things like that. I don't think I think kind of the age of the rock star is dead, and it's just, music's just about connection, and especially I think real like lyrical music. So I don't know if I don't think too much about, oh, we should do something that's really punk, but I always think about potential. And like, it's like with music videos, if we get kind of like 250 quid to record a music video, we could kind of like stand in a really nicely lit room and kind of just play our instruments, or we could just be really creative with it and just have fun with it. And I think you have so many more adventures when you go, let's look at the potential of this. How can we push this to the nth degree and just do something really cool? And we do exactly the same with our merch, and exactly the same with our touring and our videos and our output, and just spending time with the people that we like. We played a show yesterday, and it was to a packed room in Haggerston in London, and like at least half the people there, I knew their names. And if not, I kind of like knew their faces, and I didn't know them 6 months ago. And it's just built, for people. And we had people traveling from the South Coast, we had people traveling from Sheffield and like over from near Wales and stuff, just to be in that room. And I think it's just because we're building something that's DIY, you know, and it should always be like that. And we always sell our own merch as well. Like, we're always on the merch, they're selling our own merch and taking photos and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, 100%. So it's a really long answer. But yeah, important. It's definitely, DIY is important. Embracing potential, not being a rock star at all, and letting people know when you're feeling vulnerable as well. Just being, I think, honesty, just being honest and authentic is the most important thing.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic, and obviously it builds a different level of engagement from your followers as well. Obviously, as you said, they're more involved, which is great, obviously, and it's great to have the support of Xtra Mile, as we said, and you've been able to play some pretty big shows over the last year or so. So, I mean, two-pronged question, you know. First, how did it feel to get out and play shows after the pandemic? But also, you know, what have you learned from playing those shows with artists such as Frank and Skinny Lister?
So I've kind of learned what a professional show is like, really, because we've not really done them before. We've done festivals and stuff, but we kind of everything was just kind of a bit of a party before. And what's really interesting is like if you're playing somewhere like Rock City or something, everything's so regimented, or especially if we've only done little tours with Frank at the moment, but you get this kind of like one sheet of paper which goes, right, sound checks this time, this is where your dressing room is, this is where you park, this is what time lunch is, and everything's so regimented. He's got a tour manager called Tree, who's incredible, and then has a stage manager called Dougie, and everything is just so to an agenda. And at the start, it was like, oh wow, this is kind of overwhelming. Like, everyone's like, they're professionals, properly doing jobs, whereas before, like, we'd go play local pubs and it'd be like, and which I love doing still, which our last 2 shows were like that. And it's just like, you're right, lads, how you doing? Want a beer? Come in. Oh, you just set up. We haven't really got stage time, so just do it when you want. And I used to love the kind of chaos of that. But then when you upscale, it just has to be so regimented, because you're dealing with like Frank employs something like 12 people or something just to do his shows, and that's without employing his band as well. And it's amazing. And what I've learned is, because I've been able to kind of like spend time backstage, but kind of like spend time out front as well, just the passion that his crew have got. Like his lights person, like, she's like incredible. It feels like if you're standing with her watching her do it, it's like she's playing her own gig, and she's there, and she's waiting for the drop of the song, and then and it's like watching a DJ. It's so amazing, the passion that they have for live music. And then with Frank, I've just learned, because like we're tour buddies, but also like we live near each other, and we're like really good friends as well. So I've just learned kind of how to front something on a bigger scale, and how to have conversations. Because before, when I play small shows, I do quite a lot of talking. It's very, very kind of conversational. Whereas Frank, in a big room, he'll go out and he'll play 4 or 5 songs before even speaking. Yeah. And it's like really interesting. And then we went out with the Hives as well. Yeah. And like learned so much then as well, especially about fronting a band. I mean,
the showmanship, from LA.
Yeah, exactly. And he pushes showmanship to the nth degree. I mean, he pushed it so far. We did Rock City with them the first night, and we kind of played our show, and we went down all right, and then they played their show, and I was like, oh, I understand what I need to do now. And then went on in Portsmouth, and kind of we just went out with just our arms in the air, kind of like, come on. And it was like the second show, just by watching their show the first night, was so much better. And it's like, yeah, again with Skinny Lister, I just kind of like learned, like they just make things feel like so inclusive. And I think how they make things feel inclusive, just how much they love each other when they're on stage. And obviously they're kind of like families and partners and things. And I love with them how they've included like their new song. They've got their little baby daughter in the video and stuff, which is amazing. And I am so excited to go out to Germany with them. I think if you're going to gig anywhere with Skinny Lister, I think Germany's the place. It's going to be incredible. But what I've learned as well so far, is everyone that's kind of like operating on this level, and I'm sure you'll get kind of arrogant people and like your rock stars and stuff, but everyone's just been so nice and so accommodating and so friendly. They're very professional, and you've obviously got your boundaries, especially around COVID. It was like, right, we've got to section off these areas and all this kind of stuff. But everyone's been so friendly and accommodating, so supportive, which is amazing. And it's kind of like making us do the same to other acts as well.
Yeah, no, that is really interesting, to get that view of what a young up-and-coming band are looking for. And we'll touch, I guess, a bit more on that in a second, because we have a portion that we're going to end with in a moment called Setlist Science. But one more question before then is just to make sure that people know what you guys have got coming up. So obviously they need to follow you on social media, and you are on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all that. We Are Pet Needs.
That's the one.
And of course, you've got your own website, which I guess is petneeds.com or something.
Petneedsband.com, yeah.
Petneedsband.com. So obviously the tour dates I see are all on there, and you've got lots coming up with Frank, with Skinny Lister, headline shows. I believe you're doing some Nick Alexander Memorial Trust shows over the next week or so. You've probably got some festivals in there. So obviously listeners need to check that out. What are you particularly excited about, and why should people come out and see you?
Yeah, cool. I think with the Nick Alexander on the road shows, I think they're going to be really amazing. We did the first one on Tuesday, and it was just brilliant. I think that was especially incredible because Frank was our secret support act for it as well, which was really cool because he's just got his number one, and then it was his first gig after his number one, and we were headlining it, and he was the main support, and people kind of knew he was going to play it, but didn't know he was going to play it. And it was terrifying to follow him because he obviously ripped the roof off the place. And then we kind of walked on thinking everyone was going to leave. But it was great. But those shows are going to be really cool. That when we're talking about kind of DIY kind of ethos, there's a lady called Zoe that runs a charity. It's kind of in memorial for her brother that died in the Bataclan attacks. He was a merch guy. I'm from Colchester, same as us. And she's just kind of reached out through her networks, kind of behind the scenes and stuff, to just build something that's really DIY. And I feel like it's going to have that real kind of communal family vibe. With the first show, it's anything to go by. And we're touring with our label mates called Berries, who are fantastic. Album coming out soon, and also touring with a band called, when we say kind of keep it in the family, keep it DIY, a band called Ghosts and Men, who 5 years ago were the first band we ever opened for, and who are great and hilarious, kind of hard rock two-piece. That's going to be really cool. And then we've got a little run of headline shows as well. But I think the thing that I'm looking forward to the most, I think, because it's we're never going to be able to do this again, I don't think, is that on the 13th of March at Earth in Hackney, we're doing a gig. It's like an Xtra Mile Recording kind of collab with an 100-piece orchestra, which I can't. We're doing 2 songs, and then I think everyone just does a couple of songs. There's loads of acts on. And I met the person that's writing all the scores and kind of conducting it all and stuff at the Clapham Grand the other day when we played a show there. And he seems so excited about it, but I just can't even conceptualize it at the moment. It's a bit like before we started playing big rooms, and I was like, I know I'm going to do it, but I can't, in my brain, I can't see how it's going to work. So we get to rehearse in the afternoon with this massive orchestra. and then play it in the evening. So that's definitely the show that I'm most kind of intrigued about and excited about. But I'm also really excited to play loads of punk shows all around the UK soon, which is going to be great, man.
Yeah, no, that one in Earth in London does sound absolutely incredible, and some other great acts on there as well. So obviously, listeners should search that one out and grab a ticket, pop along to that one. So going back then, as you said, something else that perhaps you might have picked up from the artists you've been touring with. Our last section is called Setlist Science, and basically the question to you is, how much importance do you put into the structure of a set list, and have you got any rules that you tend to follow?
Yeah, sure. So it completely depends on the gig. So I think it completely depends on if people know you or not, and if you're doing a kind of like support set list or a headline set list. So I think on a headline show, it's kind of like you have to presume that kind of like a lot of people know who you're gonna like who you are and stuff like that. And so it gives you more chance to be a little bit creative. And like we did a headline show yesterday, and we started with a like heavy version of a song called As the Spin Cycles Span, which is on the extended version of the album. So it's kind of a bit niche if kind of you've only just heard the kind of like main album or something. But so it's a bit of a deep cut. But if you're in a room of people that know you well, then it's people, oh yeah, I know the band, and like, oh excuse me, and then they can just jump straight into it. But then it depends. We've also started with we started with a song called Outline, a headline set, where it's all just kind of like about swelling and like kind of things building, and then just crashing straight into it. And then it's kind of, yeah, just about taking people on a journey and not being afraid to be quiet at times as well. So you kind of, but if you're being quiet, don't do it too late in the set. We do kind of like maybe about a third in, or maybe kind of like halfway in, we drop down to something like our song Embers, and then we'd kind of, that kind of gives it the kind of like context, because then when you hit with a party song straight afterwards, then it's usually the song after the quiet song where things just explode and it's just party music right to the end. If we're doing a support set, we will start with a single. So we often start with Toothpaste, so the one that you were kind of said, which is a clear one, because you're very much kind of invited to someone else's party when you're doing a support set. And you want to be the person that kind of like kicks down the door, it's like ta-da, like that, like straight away, so people go, oh cool, right, these have caught my attention straight away. You can't rely on anybody knowing who you are. And someone gave me advice, I can't remember who it was, but they said, like, at a support set, start with your best song and end on your second best song, so that you just kind of like grab people straight away. And when we do a support set, we kind of, because it's only half an hour, which is kind of about 7 songs, we just usually just look at all of our singles and go, right, what's the best way to do all the poppy songs, all the dancey songs, and just go on. And you kind of want it to feel like people have almost just been kind of like smacked in the face by music, and they're like, what was that, like that, and then they're suddenly off. And then hopefully they kind of buy the album and stuff, and then they can listen to stuff that's got a little bit more nuance as well.
Yeah, definitely. And then come along to them headline shows when they actually know what they're listening to. No,
yeah,
really insightful. Yeah, really insightful. Thank you for that. Always interests me to talk to the artists about the set list curation, because
nice,
quite interesting. But yeah, no, thank you so much for giving me your time, for coming on the podcast. Listeners, obviously, as we've said, get onto the band's social media. We Are Pet Needs. See where they're playing. Head along to a show. Obviously, get online, check out the album, buy the album preferably. It is a fantastic album. We look forward to catching you on the road. Johnny, what would be your final message for the listeners today?
I think the final message would be go and listen to Oxbow Lake, who are the band that toured with us kind of around the Borough Toothpaste tour. They're really cool, but they've also got some new music coming out that George, my brother, has just recorded. So yeah, keep an eye on their social media and things like that. And when that new EP drops, I think it's going to blow people away. It's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll tell you what, that is punk. Finishing by plugging someone else's band is excellent. I love it. So yeah, thank you, Johnny, and listeners, check him out. Well, thank you so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed that chat there with Pet Needs. Do make sure that you follow the band on social media, check out their debut album, Fractured Party Music, listen to their single, Punk Isn't Dead, it's just up for sale on our Discover New Music playlist. over on Spotify, and of course try and pop along to one of their shows. Finally, from me, again, if you would, please do follow us on social media. We are on Facebook at Full Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And again, if you would, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button wherever you're watching or listening to the podcast. And we will be back very soon for another edition of the Discover New Music podcast.